Hey guys, it's Mark Roberts. Welcome to Let's Get Into Entertainment. Today we are going to get into the business of entertainment and podcasts. Our guest today is Matty Staudt, who's created 300 podcasts. We're going to talk about taking risks for your business, any business, podcasting, entertainment, whatever you're into. And we're going to talk a little bit with Rod, and we're going to reunite with Davey Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Get Into the Business of Entertainment.
That's right, Robert.
It's actually Let's Get Into Entertainment, the business of entertainment.
Okay, let's get into entertainment. The business of entertainment, right? I'm Mark Roberts.
You're Mike Roberts.
And this is Tuddy, and we've got Davey Dave on the ones and twos. Welcome. I'm so glad to be back, you guys. Oh, my God.
Roberts, I gotta give you some props.
Go ahead.
You killed it in Carson City and Tahoe.
Thank you, sir.
You were under so much pressure. You pulled it off. I'm very proud of you, my friend.
And you even knocked out 2 podcasts while you were at it.
And he drank 8 bottles of tequila in 3 weeks, which is more impressive.
Are you sure it was 8?
No, it was 8.
It was a lot of bottles of tequila.
It was 8. What was great too is we would shoot, depending on the schedule, and this fool would come back every night. Modelo time food, and we would drink Modelos every night. I did.
I'll tell you something that was really cool about working on the movie in Carson. First of all, they did that was where the Ponderosa was, so that's where they did
Bonanza.
That's where they did Bonanza.
That's right.
Yeah, and by the way, we're talking about the film Feliz Navidad, which I produced, which you had a little part in, which Mario Lopez produced, which I was just about to say we worked with Paula Hart and Melissa Joan Hart, who directed the film, and she was the teenage witch. Right? She was the teenage witch, Sabrina. Yep. And I mean, dude, they've made hundreds of hours of television. It was really cool to work with them and to do a Christmas movie, which they're experts at. Yep. And it was just fun to go. Now, we have a special guest today.
We do.
His name is Matty Staudt.
Matty.
That's right.
He's done over 300 podcasts and radio shows. I mean, I'm going to let him tell his story because
a lot of projects,
dude.
Bro.
That's a lot of projects.
That's
but
some commitment, right?
He started in radio. He worked himself from like driving a VW to talking himself into a job.
His first radio show was when he was 10. In his room.
What?
That's some Spielberg shit right there.
Well, let's bring him in.
What I'm saying? Like, we got the Spielberg of radio in here.
Well, here he is, Matty Staudt. Matty, welcome to the show, buddy.
What an awesome introduction.
Oh, my God.
I appreciate it. I'm Spielberg of radio.
That's amazing.
That's pretty true.
I wouldn't have put it that way, but that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Steven has got nothing on me.
Nah,
would you explain...
I love my duplex that I'm
Exactly. Would you explain how and when podcasting got started, and then we'll get back to and then we'll go back into your history. But I want to know specifically podcasting. Like when did this get going?
Okay, so podcasting was started by Adam Curry. Remember Adam Curry from MTV?
Yeah.
He was the one that started podcasting
in the 80s,
late 90s.
Okay,
so it started as this. So when you do a podcast, you put it on what is called an RSS feed. It's called Really Simple Syndication. That's what it stands for. So when podcasting started, if you had a radio show or any kind of audio and you wanted to distribute it, you'd either have to send it up to a satellite or send out CDs. Or like my first radio show that I did when I was 16 was The Sounds of Sinatra, and it came in on an album.
Great
and I'd
show.
have to flip the album and every hour. And my first day, I flipped the album, I said the weather, and it skidded, and I yelled shit into the mic 3 times. And luckily I had a boss that came in and he fixed it, and he looked at me and goes, "You ever going to do that again?" I said,
Amazing.
No. And he goes, "Good, okay," and walked out, and that was that.
When did it change to digital? When did it start becoming what it is now?
So they created this system that like, okay, we can send this feed out that like one feed can feed anybody who has the feed. So Apple got onto that quickly. Like, so there was podcasting, but like there was no hub for it.
Right.
So I was actually working in radio when Apple introduced. Well, I was invited to this event because I wanted to meet Seal. He was there. And I was like, I didn't know anything about computers. I didn't know who Steve Jobs was. I really didn't give a shit. But I was like, all right, I'll go to this thing. So I sit through this thing. I'm sitting through this Steve Jobs thing, and he's talking about this new thing called iTunes, and you're going to pay for music. And I'm like, nobody's going to pay for music.
That.
Nobody's going to
got
do that.
LimeWire.
Meanwhile, I don't realize I'm sitting at like history. Like, he's introducing it. So when they introduced the iPod, it was the first place that like you could host podcasts. They became podcasts because of the name iPod. So that's when it started. So when I started in podcasting, I was doing a very popular radio show in San Francisco. and just kind of got to the point where I was like, I've been doing radio my whole life and I want to do something different. And these guys are a startup and we might make millions of dollars because that's what I wanted to do. And it was called Stitcher. And we had, all the podcasts at the time were like really like Mac driven, like really long, 2 hours. The content was, the only content provider that we signed a deal with who was doing good content was NPR.
Right.
So NPR was like the first company to be like, but let's
that makes sense though. That makes sense. They got a lot of content on the radio and they're doing stuff.
And it's very indie. What I like about podcasts and similar to our show, it's very indie. Like you're out there and there's really no rules. I mean, there are, but there aren't. You know what I'm saying? That's what's kind of great about it. I think that's just me.
Well, that's why guys like me got into it, because I'd come from FM Talk where we were doing, kind of really hardcore radio. Yeah. And then Janet Jackson happened. So I was working for Opie and Anthony in New York. And when Janet Jackson, that thing happened, all of a sudden radio got squished. Like they told us we couldn't, they used to like draw a box and say, stay on the edge of the box. Yeah. And we did. Yeah. And then after Janet Jackson was like, here's the middle of the box. You guys need to stay here. And it kind of, that was the end of like good talk radio. So all of us either went to Sirius XM or into podcasting. So like my mentor is Howard Stern's boss now. He runs the Howard Stern Network because that's where we all ended up because we wanted to keep doing, Renegade.
Yeah.
That's cool amazing. Yeah. It's weird is I was watching the movie about Apple, the Steve Jobs thing, and they show when they announced the iPod, right? I had no idea that iPod was connected to podcasts.
Yeah, me neither.
Pretty remarkable. Though. And what year was that? Like, how old were you and what year was that?
It had to be 2000. Well, I moved to San Francisco in 2002 from New York, so I think it was probably maybe that year or the year after. I did a lot of drugs.
So you didn't. So you didn't know.
It's haze. It's just haze.
Yeah, you didn't know. It looked like this was going to be the future. It felt like it was going to be the future. Or you had no idea.
I didn't really understand podcasts. I just knew it was talk radio. And in fact, when we started Stitcher, we didn't say podcast because it was like a dirty word. Yeah. Because everybody was like, podcast. It's just idiots in the garage. So we called it on-demand radio, on-demand talk radio. Because that's what it is. It's on demand and it's talk radio. The term podcasting for me for almost like 8 years was a bad word. Like everybody was like, why would you leave radio? Why are you doing this? Why did you get into podcasting?
Yeah. Right. No, it's an amazing thing because recently, I would say over the past year since we've been doing this, I started to notice podcasts a lot more, and my wife listens to them all the time. It just seems like it's here to stay.
With it, Robert, you're so old.
I know, I just
started the new one too. I like the crime, like the
crime stuff. Dude, it's launched entire series, amazing stories that have gone on to be amazing. Yeah.
Welcome to 2000. What year are we? 2010. I was at 2010.
I was going to say 2000 Tuddy.
Yeah, 2000 Tuddy. I like that.
Oh, I like it.
We got a new phrase.
But I think, look, it's like anything else. You don't know a lot about the business of podcasting until you meet someone like yourself who's been doing it, who was sort of at the inception of it, look, you were at iHeartRadio for a while.
Yeah.
And I think they're sort of the leaders in podcasting.
Well, when I got to iHeart, there was no podcast division. Wow. I only came to iHeart. They wanted me to come back. A lot of people were trying to get me to come back to radio over the years, and I just didn't want to go back and do mornings and that. And in the meantime, I'd gotten pretty skilled at digital and working with all kinds of digital products. So they asked me to take over digital for San Francisco, all the digital, like all the videos, social media, all that stuff. And I said, only if I can take the talent and create podcasts. So at San Francisco, in the first 8 months, I created 40 podcasts with the talent there. Wow, and these were all music stations, and nobody was doing podcasts with music talent. And then the guys in New York were like, they saw how many numbers I was creating and they were starting to get serious about podcasting. So they were like, take over, do the whole country. So I went on a barnstorming tour of the United States of all the big markets and creating podcasts. That's where I created so many podcasts. And then we bought How Stuff Works and integrated that team and just kind of really jumped into the space late but quickly and got it.
Well, we're going to get into the business of podcasting.
God, that's a movie in itself, to be honest.
Oh my God! Here we go, though.
I'm just saying that's the creative mind thinking over here.
This is the Tuddy mind thinking. Like you turn it into a movie, and then 3 years later, we're still working on a script.
I finished my scripts, player.
All right, but no, listen. What's really fascinating about this, if you're listening, is that this is a business, right? And like any other business, you need funding. People need to get paid. There has to be some way of doing this. So let's talk about all of that, like the mechanics of it, because I think it's really interesting. Yeah. I have no idea how it works. And if you haven't been listening to the podcast, Matty and Amanda have picked us up to sort of be with their company, which is Jam Street
Media.
Right, Jam Street Media, and we're excited to be part of it. So now we're having Matty on to continue like what we do, which is discuss the business of entertainment in general. And podcasting is going to be a big part of our lives. It is right now, and it's going to be for many years. So let's talk about this. First of all, take me back. When did you first get into entertainment? Because obviously you did not grow up in Hollywood. A lot of us did not, right?
I grew up in a little town in West Virginia. And then when I was 10 years old, my mom got remarried and we moved to a cabin that had no electricity, no plumbing. I spent every day cutting wood because everything was wood heat.
So naturally, you became a podcaster.
Well, no, I had
like
radio.
You were originally off the grid.
I listened to radio all the time. And in fact, only the TV I got was through the radio. So I listened to the show Santa Barbara every afternoon in People's Court. So fast forward to when I'm doing a morning show in San Francisco, one of my biggest fans and listeners is Robin Wright Penn. She listens every morning. In fact,
no kidding.
We did a stunt where we pretended we got fired and she called the head of CBS and went nuts. And, it was crazy. Wow. So I meet her like at this concert and I'm like, "You're Kelly Capwell," because that was her name on Santa Barbara. But yeah, so I got into I had to always visualize, take audio and visualize it. So I think it was ingrained in me to want to do that and to be involved with audio. Yeah. And my mom listened to Howard Stern a lot.
Who didn't?
But this was when it was just on DC 101. Right. This is way back in the day. And I didn't really know, I didn't always understand what he was doing, but I remember when he called Air Florida for a one-way ticket to the 14th Street Bridge. I was like 9, and I thought that was hilarious. And so as soon as I could get a car and drive to the radio station, I asked for a job, and they put me on, like I said, doing Sunday mornings, playing this thing. And then we had a rock station. Somebody got hung over, and they didn't show up. And back then, the radio stations would shut off at midnight. And they're off the air till 6 a.m. Right. So somebody's got to turn it on at 6 a.m.
Right.
So I go in at 6 a.m. I start DJing. I'm just like, I'll play whatever you ask me for. So I'm playing like Neil Young, deep cuts. Like, I don't know what. I went to a Belle Biv DeVoe concert the night before. Like, I don't know anything about rock and roll. But it just so happened that was when Nirvana came out. And I was just in that. And I just got the job. I just, they let me do it. And then I put myself through college working as a rock and roll DJ, and Alternative was brand new, and I was kind of one of the first guys to break a lot of those bands. It was in West Virginia, but it was in a cool college town.
Yeah,
so.
But that's still that's a movie.
Really cool. Have you heard the podcast Blackout with Rami Malek? Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it, but I have not listened to it.
You're basically telling that story in a sense. He's a rock and roll DJ in Maine, and there's a blackout, and it's like this, and he has to continue the society by moving, but it's a throwback to
he's not advertising our podcast, so I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you cut all my shit out anyway, so it doesn't even matter. I could say whatever.
No, but that's interesting. What's fascinating about everybody who's been on the show that is successful like yourself and has done great things to forward move entertainment and to move, just technology forward, is that everyone comes from a place where you can turn right or left, or something's in your DNA, or something's that, you grew up listening to the radio. It became something that was natural for you. So when you got an opportunity, which a lot of our guests get really odd opportunities, and normally it's about throwing your hat over the fence and getting it, no choice, right? I think when you got your opportunity, you knew radio, you knew how it worked, you knew what made people listen, and you were actually not afraid to jump in at 6 o'clock in the morning and just go fuck it, let's do whatever we got to do, right?
Yeah, and when I graduated, I was still working in these small markets in West Virginia and trying to get out to any bigger market. And I'd sent an intern to DC to work for Don and Mike, because it was my favorite show in DC. And she called me. She's like, "Did G. Gordon Liddy, producer, quit?
Oh, wow.
And you want to be in a market?" I didn't know anything about producing a talk show. I'd never done that. But I got my little escort. I drove to DC, literally drove to DC, waited in the reception for the producer to come out, talked my way into the job. A month later, because I could talk to Gordon like nobody else, because everyone was scared of him. I was 25. I didn't know any better. So I was like, "No, you got to do this. Be the same thing." Right. And I became his executive producer after a month.
That's amazing.
And then 9 months later, they sent me to New York, gave me a morning show. So I'm still like a Yelp, really local from West Virginia.
That's a remarkable story. Yeah. But so when you get the opportunity and you don't know how to produce a radio show, is it sort of ingrained in you what it's supposed to be like? I mean, it wasn't from zero, right? You sort of had an idea.
Well, no, because when you start at the bottom, you know what everybody does. And I tell people that all the time. Like, you have to understand, and that's how I got the job, was because I knew everything. I knew what engineers do. I knew what sales do. Yeah. I'd been up at a tower in a storm fixing a transistor on a station. So when you understand what everybody else does, it puts you in a position of power, because nobody can ever come to you and say, oh, well, we can't do that. It's like, yeah, you can, because I'm sure we've all been in that position where somebody's like, well, we can't.
Anyone who's successful has been in that position, right? Where they're like, grab this, do this. I had
a makeup artist try that on me. I was like, knock it off. Come on. You know how to
take it easy.
Blend those colors together. You're going to mess up the movie.
But, I was called in by Sony to interview for the job of executive producer of Mexico's Next Top Model. I had never done anything like it, ever, like nothing. So I went in and I told my friend Deborah Henderson, I said, they're not going to hire me. I don't have the qualifications to do this job. She was like, yeah, you'll be fine. You speak Spanish. So I said, yeah, I do. And I went on and on. I went through 5 interviews and they hired me. So long story short, I was in a fetal position most of the days there, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I've never done a show like this. So what did I do? The one thing that I knew I could do, which I bought 6 seasons of Top Model here in the US. And I would watch episode 1 and then I'd go work on episode 1. Nice. And then we went to episode 2. I'd watch episode 2. And I didn't tell anyone I was doing this, but I basically just copied the American version, which was super successful. And that's what I gave those guys. So inevitably, you do what you know, and you go back to the people that are successful in the business, and you either emulate what they did or you flat out copy it.
It's funny how many people come to me and they want to do a podcast. They're like, I'm going to get into podcasting. I'm like, well, what's your favorite podcast? I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. That's me. Are you kidding me? Like, but a lot of times, like, people have, they just have zero appreciation for, like, you have to, before you can produce content, you need to consume it. Right. And that's what I teach at university. And that's one thing I always teach is, like, to be a good producer, you have to be a good consumer. Right. Yep. So you can't be the person who's like, I don't like to watch TV. Well, then fuck you. Get out of media. Right. You're in the wrong business.
Yeah. Right. Because you got to know what twists are. You got to know what motivates people, what makes people feel. I mean, music and a lot of other things do that for film. In podcasting, I'm not ultimately sure, like, what, whether you arc shows, whether you know what I mean?
It's
like
storytelling.
Right. It is storytelling. You're right.
And, depending on the kind of show, you always want to build up.
Yeah.
Pay off, build up. Oh, can't wait for the next show for the payoff. Right. When we're doing like scripted stuff. Yeah. But it's kind of, the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's, when I do interviews, I usually have a story arc that I want to do with the person, and I don't stick to it if the conversation doesn't go that way. Right. But I do have a plan usually for how I want this thing.
But you know what? Inevitably, in general conversation, when you're pitching yourself, when you're talking about the things that you want to do, you end up arcing your story no matter what, right? Yeah. You have like the beginnings, you have the kind of lull, and then the tent poles that are going to get people to go, oh my God, did that really happen?
Or you can read it, and when you're pitching someone, like when I pitch you Robert's things, I can see it in your eye. I can just feel that right now. See, that dismissiveness, so I got to spark something like tequila. And he goes,
that's different. Yeah.
Twist to it. So,
But look, moving on, I think one of the key things that we've always kind of come to with every guest on the show, and with ourselves, in fact, is that you have to take chances. You have to take an opportunity that feels like you may not be ready for, and that's what makes you super successful in any business, not just entertainment. Entertainment is there's just a big magnifying glass on entertainment, so you see people succeed like that all the time. But if you look at all these huge companies, if you look at people like yourself, like Amanda, like the things that you guys have done, the things that have made people successful are risks. And just throwing that hat over the fence and going like, I got to get it. I have no choice. I mean, look, if you fail, sometimes you fail up in this business.
Yeah, I went to my therapist. I was talking to my therapist one time, and I said, I just would like to be normal. I'd like to not have to always be on the edge. Like I leave iHeartRadio. I had a great job there to start a company. And she looked at me and she's like, you do best when you have a knife to your throat. That's you. Like, just get over it. You're never going to be the guy on a softball team. You're never going to have like that normal like friend group. That's just not who you are. You're always going to be this way, which kind of is depressing sometimes because I think you guys have the same drive.
No, it's the way it is.
It makes you nuts.
Yeah.
And I tell my students, when I teach at university, I warn them. I said the other side of being creative is that you better be able to deal with your mental end.
Yes.
Because if you can't deal with this part of it, the mental part, you will either end up in rehab or I ended up in rehab at one point. I mean, or just, or
I haven't been. I kind of got to go.
Therapy, do something because like we don't shut off at night.
No.
Wake up at 3 a.m. with a notepad and like
24/7. Hey, you know what? It's 24/7. You're always thinking about it. You always want it. I just came off a film, and I think when I was on the film, I was thinking to myself, I'm never going to do this again.
We were kind of like our own therapist on that film. You know that?
Yeah.
Every night, Roberts and I would drink. Like, it didn't matter what time. We could wrap at like 1 a.m.
You
We'd
had
go
to,
back.
though. You had
And we would
to.
like drink and talk. You know what I mean? And then you kind of go to bed for a few hours and you're like, all right, I feel a little better.
And you got to regroup. Look, before we go to a beer break, which I'm going to definitely have a beer. We got to have a beer break because everyone needs a beer. Yeah. But I was thinking about how important it is to take chances, and I just want to. I want before we sort of end this little piece here, I just want to remind people: take chances, do things you're afraid of. I tell my kids this all the time. I'll say, if you're afraid of it, you're doing it. Period. Yeah. You got to do it. So be afraid of stuff. Get out there and try something different. And if you're afraid of doing it, you got to go. Beer break.
Beer break,
buddy.
Hey, so cheers to you all. We're back. I think one of the most interesting things about being passionate about a business is that sometimes that passion doesn't always turn into money.
True.
That's the sad part, is that we have this passion for something. You get into conversation, all of a sudden, you don't know where the money's going to come from. You don't know how to bill for yourself. You don't know how to ask for what you're worth.
Why you look at me when you say that?
Because you're the one who has the issue with this. But but let's move forward, because I think what's interesting about what we're talking about, podcasting, is that no one knows how this business works. No one knows how you get paid for it.
We just don't know how.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. We don't know how this business works. And probably a lot of people listening have no idea either. So if you're going into the business of podcasting and you have more to talk about than just a bunch of dads that have kids that are going to preschool talking about that, like, what is it? How does this business work? Do you raise money like an indie movie? Do you, obviously we started it for nothing.
Yeah.
And we have the amazing Russ Emanuel from extrememusic.com, who jumped in and sponsored us when we had 3 listeners.
Yeah, he did.
But,
So we're not far off.
we're not far off. But how does it work, Matty? Tell us.
So,
or how did it work? How did it start, and how is it now?
well, when we started, there was really no revenue model. We knew that we wanted to do advertisers, but advertisers just didn't get it. And they treated it as like another digital property, and it was very low valued. The fact of the matter is, my 10,000 podcast listeners who listen to a niche podcast about a certain thing are much more valuable than a million television or radio, whatever Nielsen's telling you, because that's bullshit.
True? Why is that?
There's like 15 meters, and they tell you what 3 million people are listening to. My numbers are super real and like granular, and I can tell you how long they listen, what kind of phone they listen on, where they're listening from, when they tune in, when they tune out.
And that matters.
And it really does matter. So we're starting to see advertisers come in. Making money from a podcast is very, very difficult. I think one of the reasons I launched this part. So when I launched this company, it was to make podcasts for brands, because that's a good business, because they pay you up front. You find a good talent to do the podcast, and they know the audience that they want. They give you KPIs. You know exactly what you're doing to build the podcast. Building a network is tougher because you have to like really get your downloads up to a pretty high level.
You're talking about network like Jam Street Media. Okay.
So for a network like ours, we launched it because I'd met Amanda, and she had a podcast that she was working on called Deep Dive with Vanessa Mdee. And it kind of clicked with me. Like, I kept making podcasts for other people and for other networks and getting paid to do it. And then I was done with the projects. And I was like, well, they're all coming to me to do these shows. Let's do it. The problem with that is, during COVID, it's been okay because I've got a great staff, and they all used to be my students.
Oh, wow.
So like, I get to pick at the litter, I get all these good kids. But for a company like ours, like, we're in the middle of fundraising because we want to promote our shows, and you have to promote podcasts. You can't just do a podcast and put it out there. You're never going to make it that way. You've got to spend money on marketing and promotion. You have to understand digital marketing. You have to understand metrics. You have to understand like a lot of like things that people don't think about when they get into podcasting that they need to understand.
Right.
And that's something like I went back to school. Got my master's in digital marketing because I was like, that's a skill I need to have to do this right. So, even with a company like ours where we're getting good downloads, it's still not a lot of money coming in right now.
Right.
But it will, because guess what? The advertisers got it. COVID's been the best thing to happen to us.
Right.
We're the only show in town making new stuff. A company like ours is scrappy. We've made all our podcasts remotely, so we never had a studio model.
Right.
And then the other business for us now and for everybody is IP, so intellectual property acquisition. So we want to make podcasts that have life maybe in other venues. So like I've got a couple things coming down the road that like I know if we can make the podcast successful, we'll have a lot of easy front door, like people want to make it into television and movies. And on the other side of that is on the television and movie side, a lot of people are getting into podcasting because they want to prove out IP through a podcast. But the problem with a lot of these companies that pop up doing it, they don't know anything about podcasting. Like my first partner was a really good example of that. She came from TV. She thought, I can do this. It's no problem. I'm from TV. And she never like got the whole thing, like what podcasting is. And like, it is a different medium. It's different telling stories with audio than video.
So if you're out there and you think you have a subject that has longevity that you can talk about on a weekly basis, that has an arc that can bring people back to listening
and niche.
Yeah. Do you go out and find someone like yourself? Do you just start doing it and see? I mean, is there any right way to do it?
There's a million ways to do it. So here's what I tell anybody who gets into the business. When you start the podcast, your job is to promote. So that means you go on any podcast that'll have you on, who's in a similar vein. You promote on social media. You find Reddit groups that are talking about your topic. So like with our podcast, Deep Cover with Donnie Brasco. So we have like the real Donnie Brasco. We're doing digital marketing, finding people who are into, we do psychographics on the person who I know who will listen. And the guy who listens to that podcast is a dude who likes NASCAR and he's into, law enforcement and, probably right wing. And like we do a psychographic on that guy. And then we go find where that guy is and promote it there.
That's amazing.
And you can do that on your own with Facebook ads and things.
It's a lot of work.
You gotta understand. It's a ton of work.
Yeah.
Doing the podcast is the easiest part.
Yeah,
I like this part.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is the fun part. Everybody likes this part.
This is so independent filmmaking, dude. You know what I mean? You got to market your film. You got to cast it right. It's a niche.
You know what?
Got to figure out what your topic
You know what?
is.
You're exactly right, and I'm gonna make the exact.
I know I'm exactly right.
The
What do you think, I'm
comparison
talking for no reason?
No, the comparison is good because most indie films, they make 10,000 films a year. And how many of them do you hear of? Very few. How many of them make money? You're talking about like a handful. Yeah. Like you can grab the amount of it's 10,000 movies a year.
We started this
1.3 million podcasts out there.
What?
Wow.
How many are successful? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
maybe
buddy.
5,000. Maybe 500.
500,
Wow.
but you're talking millions of dollars that these guys are making, right?
No, not even millions of dollars.
Well,
maybe the top 50 make millions of dollars. Maybe
Joe Rogan, maybe.
Joe Rogan does, but
Why does he make so much money? Why does he make so much?
Episode number 16,000.
Listen, and you made a really good point. So the people that got into podcasting early and stuck with it have built their audiences up and their downloads up, and they just keep building more. Yeah. The problem with those guys, and I did an article called "But Joe Rogan Does It," because I hear that all the time. Like, I want to do my show like Joe Rogan.
Hilarious.
You're not fucking Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Right.
You didn't start 3 years ago, so you keep it to 50 minutes. You do good titles. You use SEO. Like we really focus in on a lot of stuff. And like the minute somebody's telling me I want to do it like Joe Rogan, I'm like, get the fuck out, because I know you're great. Go. You're not Joe Rogan though.
And it takes
so indie. It's like I want to make a movie like Martin Scorsese. Oh, you do?
No, I want to be like Robert Rodriguez. Okay, well, there's only one of those dudes. Sorry. You better find something. You can try. You can try to make a $10,000 movie.
I did, fool.
I know.
And it's coming out good. It's a little more now. I
can't wait to see it. But all right, so.
Oh, by the way, I got some more money.
Did you?
Over a bocce ball game the other day.
Oh, you won it? You won it?
Yep. No, I didn't win it, but I was playing in a bocce ball, and Rich wanted me to do like a little video of these guys.
Rich
watching.
who?
Rich Alicon,
Okay,
editor.
yeah.
And so I showed Lopez and Adrian Gonzalez.
Editor? You're like already slurring.
No,
dude.
I'm not.
No.
Well, I'm on my keto diet or whatever it is. And they watched it, and I needed. Adrian liked it. Adrian Gonzalez.
Wait, Adrian Gonzalez gave you money?
Adrian Gonzalez liked it, and he goes,
$5,000?
No, he said, how much more do you need? Because we started talking, and I said, yeah, I got to go raise more money. He goes, how much? I go, probably like 10 or 15. He goes, I'll do it.
That's amazing. Wow.
Dude, that's such a success.
That is huge.
But I gave him the old, well, let me see. I got
No. That's incredible.
You're a nice guy.
But you know what? That's how it works, right? You throw your hat over the fence. You go get it. You need more money.
You saw a clip of
You
Lilo.
see opportunity.
Yeah.
You shot the part of your movie that was necessary to shoot so that you can get other people interested, and you did it. So congratulations. Hey, congratulations. Hey, congratulations. So here, okay. So moving on, I want to talk to you about something that's personal. So you were talking about other podcasts that you do that have certain types of listeners. Okay. So I did a documentary called Love and Betrayal on the Force. True story about a cop in Riverside, falls in love with another cop. That female cop goes to work in the prisons. She falls in love with a guy on death row, in for murder. They start a relationship. It all falls apart. Anyway, I did it. It's out on Amazon Prime.
The pitch was a little weak, but okay.
I want to invest. And advertise on podcasts. Do you think there's a podcast that you do with Jam Street Media that I could buy ads on?
Yeah,
that would
Donnie
Brasco.
Donnie Brasco podcast.
I was just making it dramatic. I was making it dramatic.
You got to work on your pitch.
No, I didn't want to give too much away.
Oh, knock it off.
And,
so we could do that, and you give me a deal. I can get a deal.
Yeah, and I've also got a deck for a great podcast company that's looking for funding. I'll send to you as well.
Okay.
You should look at it.
All right. Well, look. Look. You know, it's funny.
Which is weird for me because the other day I was talking to my wife, and there's a couple articles came out about me. When I launched the network, and they said, podcast executive. And that's when I'm like, it's weird for me because I still feel like I'm talent. I'm a producer. Yeah. I'm not this.
You're the guy in the trenches making shit happen.
Meanwhile, I'm talking to Amanda, who's our executive producer. I'm like, in the next few weeks, I have to stay away from content because I need to focus on fundraising. Right. And I think that's a big thing too. Like when you get to that point in your career where you realize like, I want to do the fun stuff, but you gotta.
It's all in the same. It's all in the same. You got to do it all. But fundraising is a big topic on our show. I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, and I want them to know this because I didn't know this. When they're growing up and we go to like Century City or any town, anywhere you're standing, I said, look around you. What did it cost money to put the building up? It costs money to put that plant there. It costs money to put this floor here. Everything you see costs money. Therefore, your disconnection with dough is in your head. Yeah. Because if everyone's able to do all of this with all kinds of money, then you can do it.
He told me that same stuff.
The disconnect is all in our heads, right? It's all in how you pitch. I always like to talk about how important it is to sell yourself, right? To enroll people in your friends' projects, to enroll people in your friends' dreams, right? Yeah. If you practice doing that every day, if I tell you about Tuddy's project and tell you how great it is and I enroll you in it, that means that I'm capable of enrolling you in something that I do. True. And if you're not always selling, or at least always pitching, then you won't know if you have the ability to pitch someone something that they're going to get interested in. Is it possible to pitch someone and have them lose interest and then have them get interested by the end of that conversation? Yes. Yeah. So then why not always be pitching? Always be telling your story. Always be trying to get someone involved in what you're doing, because at the end of the day, you could either lose them or get them, or you just had a killer practice and it didn't work about that conversation.
Let's go, team. Let's go.
I'm out of here.
No, but it's funny. I teach at a university, and I teach several classes, and I tell my students all the time, like, you're marketing all day and you don't know it. Yeah. And because they're all like, oh, we'll just take creative classes. I'm like, no, you better take a marketing class, because you're marketing. They're born marketing now because they're doing social media all the time. I'm like, you're selling yourself and you're telling your story. So you need to think about, like, what is your story? So, I always point to like my LinkedIn. Like, if you go to my LinkedIn, like, how I kind of sold myself as the podcast guy is how I got the job at iHeart. Right. Because when they were like, who's the radio guy who knows everything about podcasting? Matty.
That's right.
Yeah. He was the guy that left radio and did it. But it was only because I put it out there, because nobody's just going to nobody's going to look for you. You have to be like, hey, I'm this guy.
Look, we all have that buddy where you're like, you tell hey, come over here, and that no, I'm not ready, I can't do it. That's the issue. I think there'd be a lot more successful people if they weren't afraid to like, I'm not ready. It's I need to practice. No, the practice is right there in front of you. If you lose a fish, you don't decide to stop fishing, right? You rehook the thing out and you recast it. I think that, look, that's the great subject for another day. But I think the number one thing is if you have something that you want, you've got to enroll people in your dream. You've got to enroll people in what you want. Podcasting was a thought.
Yeah.
Now it's an enormous business, and it's sort of like indies. A lot of them are not working, but the ones that do are killing it. And, you may have that idea that's the next big podcast that turns into a series, that turns into a movie, whatever it is. So I think that's a really cool subject.
I got the next big film idea, independent, you need to be on board with, Rob.
I'm out of independent, man. I've graduated. I've graduated. Hey, can I tell you?
Your own mic
look, in terms of fundraising, here's the funny thing, right? You are who you are, right? You present yourself as a professional, and you present yourself as who you are and what you believe in all the time, right? Which ends up working for you in the future. I was meeting with someone, Mickey Gooch. I was meeting with Mickey Gooch, who's our investor in Casa Mexico Tequila. We were meeting completely different subject. We were having dinner together. We were talking about the tequila company. And as I got up to leave, he says, "Oh, you're working in film, right? What are you working on next?" I said, "That's funny. I was just in the elevator with Mario literally 3 hours ago, and he said Feliz Navidad, and I said, "Oh, that'd be a great Christmas movie." And he said, "Yeah, well, how hard could it be? Like single dad finds love on Christmas Eve." He says, "Wow, that sounds amazing. Who's funding it?" And I said, "No one. 3 hours ago we came up with it." He goes, "Well, I want to fund the script." A week later, we had hired Peter Marietta to write it. He had funded $150K of the development of that script, and it turned into a movie that's going to be on Lifetime in December.
I love it.
Thanks
Feliz
for giving me
Navidad.
a shot. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
But
you write scripts?
Oh yeah. I've been known to from time to time,
before we move on. Yeah,
distinguished gentleman. That's right.
Hey, that's right. Amanda knows.
I wore his sweater because I didn't have any clothes like that.
That was great.
No, those were mine. Those really mine. I can't read anymore. I need the glasses.
Before we move on to what's next, which is going to be sort of like the wrap up, but I think that the key here is to think about what it is that you want to do and continue to pitch your tent poles, your great ideas, so that you can make something happen.
If it's a passion, you're always going to be pitching it anyways.
Yeah, is it a passion or is it adrenaline? We'll discuss that some other time.
I think so.
I like that.
I think so.
Is it a passion or is it adrenaline? All right, so podcasting, music, entertainment, the whole thing, right? Russ Emanuel has this great company called extrememusic.com. Now, here's the interesting part about what happened while I was talking to A&E, who owns Lifetime, who licensed our movie, is I said, hey, I'm looking to put some additional songs that have a Latino flair in the movie, and I happen to like extrememusic.com a lot. So I was wondering if I could use them. And they're like, funny you should mention, we have a deal with Extreme Music. They carry our library. I'm not kidding. This is a complete truth.
Love it.
And they said, hey, can you tell Russ Emanuel? I said, hello. So Russ, the guys over at A&E wanted to say, what's up? And that apparently you have a great library and that you also represent their stuff. So I'm going to be coming to you for some Christmas stuff. And so get your guys writing, buddy.
Yeah.
Extrememusic.com for all your music needs. All right. So Matty, let's get into the tail end of what you do with what you did with your career, because it's pretty remarkable. You left a really successful company that obviously is one of the leaders in music and concerts and podcasts and everything, and they're iHeartRadio. Did you do that to start your own thing? Did you think, oh, I want a different direction for what's happening? Like, why'd you do that? What was the plan?
So I was mid-contract, and I just saw, all these new companies springing up and doing podcasting. And it's like, I'm just watching people who don't know as much as me do it. And I didn't want to be on the sidelines. And I love iHeart. And I've never met a company who would let you out of your contract and also pay you out. Like, they were great.
Wow.
Because the podcast division is how stuff works. and Colin Byrne, who is the head of that, they're entrepreneurs, and they really wanted to feed that spirit in me. So they let me go do this and supported me, and they still support me. I really just wanted to do my own thing. I've always been kind of independent. I've had several, kind of smaller production companies over the years, but it was never when podcasting was hot as it is right now. Yeah. So I left, and trust me, in the last year, I've had my ups and downs. I'm like, why did I do this? And I still am not taking a salary for the company we have. But I have a lot of faith in myself and my team, and we have. I say this with I can't believe the team I have right now. They're the best team I've ever had. I'm 47, and this is the best team I've ever had. I'll go to war with them.
Young guy.
That's amazing. Good for you. I mean, and you have to go to war, right? You put on your suit every day and you go out there into the fields and you start swinging.
Wake up at 3 a.m, you look in the mirror, you splash water in your face and said, what am I doing
That's
right
what
now?
I've done that many times.
I wake up at 2 a.m. every day and stare at the ceiling and then have to do a little walk around the house and calm myself down. Why did I leave that job?
Can you?
Why?
I miss benefits and bonuses. And
I wonder if you guys can relate. I was doing a film called Danica, starring Marissa Tomei once, and it's a $4 million movie. And
of course you can relate.
I got an investor to put up 1.2 million. Mm-hmm. So I was 2.8 away from finishing. And I said, I'm starting. So I started the movie with $1.2 million. And every Friday I had to come up with $500,000 in payroll. And I did that. I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning. But you know what's really weird? I got to tell you this. This is the great part about it. I would wake up, throw water on my face, look into the mirror. My kid, I had a little kid, baby, 2-year-old, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand what I'm doing with my life, right? Yeah. I've thrown my hat over the fence like crazy, 1.2 million. I'm 2.8 away, and this voice, I could just hear this voice saying, "It's going to be okay. You're going to find the money." So then Sean Reddick, who worked at ICM at the time, who I've known for years and years and years, calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I got an investor for you." I was like, "Really? How much?" 2.8. I said, "Really?" I said, "Great. Well, let's set it up anytime you want." "Well, he's on right now and I'm going to lose you, so I'm going to let you guys talk." And he hangs up. So I'm on the phone with, I'm not going to mention his name, but I'm on the phone with this guy and we're talking. It's the week before the 4th of July. So it's kind of like an anniversary. That's why I'm talking about this. But so it's the weekend before the 4th of July, week before the 4th of July. I need 2.8. I'm 500 away from payroll on Friday. And he's like, "Look, I really like the script. You've got Marissa Tomei. Sounds like something that's moving forward really nicely. Look, I want to do it. We need a tax break. Is it possible that I could speak to someone that you worked with last?" And I had just worked with David Letterman. I had just done Strains with Candy. So I called the financial guys over at Letterman. I said, "I need you to do me a favor. It's the 4th of July. I need you to take a phone call for me today." Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Fine." So they took the phone call. I don't know what happened on the phone call, but guy calls me back, says, "Okay, we're going to fund. Thank you for letting us talk to Fred Nigro," is my buddy and worked for him for years. Funded, finished, done, 2.8, 4 million, finished the movie, and it was over and said and done. But the most,
I want that so bad. Yeah.
But and you know what? And it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen if you make it. If there's no choice, right? Life's got a funny way of doing that. Yeah. If there's no choice, life goes, "Okay, fine, just connect that dot for God's sakes," right? It only steps on you if you don't risk it all. I don't know, risking it all.
Well, even Feliz Navidad, dude. He I didn't know this, but he took out all of his money. Yeah. Flew us all out there. I thought it was all, and it wasn't. There was no money, and he was literally on his knees praying in his hotel room.
Three Our Fathers, 3 Hail Marys,
flights, hotels, everything's already everything that. Okay, we're making a movie. Yeah. There's no money. It's his money. Mm-hmm. Half of 400,000, $500,000, whatever.
About that, yeah.
And as he's praying, he says he hears ding on his computer. He goes, "Do I finish these?"
I finished praying first, and I turn around, and SAG goes, "Okay, here's your number. You can go ahead and cast all your actors from Monday."
Now the money comes. Wow.
All right, so enough about me. But you know what? I think in a lot of ways, the inspirational stories and the success stories and the taking risks is what this podcast is all about. You've got to get out there and take risks. Otherwise, you just nothing's great's going to happen if you're like, "Yeah, once I get get that, I'm going to do this. Once this happens, I'll do that. That's not how it works. The way it works is
got to have that indie spirit.
Is you've got to build it and they will come, I guess.
And you just said enough about me, which just kind of sums up you, Robert. Okay?
Thank you. So, Matty, back to you. So you made these moves. Tell us about where your company is now, what's next, and what's working.
So, what's working is that people want to work with us. So I've had several podcasts who had bigger companies want them, and they came to us, even though we're not offering any cash up front. We're doing just strictly revenue share.
Wait, there's no cash up front?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Who's paying for the beers?
I guess I did.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But we bring to the table, like, I want to make people better. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. That's my DNA. So I want to make everything I do better and every show that comes to us better. And, we're finding really good shows, really good IP, and that we're going to build on. And I've just been blessed, overwhelmed with like people who just want to come work with us, even though we, payroll right now, like I'm there. Like I started with $12,000 that I got from iHeart when I left. And every month I happen to just get a gig or something that feeds enough to keep the company going.
Good.
And I'm putting my own, my credit cards are getting maxed out.
Right.
Yeah.
But if, I have my mentor who was Jeremy, who is the head of the Howard Stern Network. I told him the other day, I was really nervous because, my team, I'm like, they're kind of working for next to nothing right now. And I'm afraid that they're going to leave me and all this. And he looks at me, he asked me one question. He goes, "Are they telling you that?" I'm like, "No, they seem really happy." And he goes, "Well, then you need to stop worrying about it.
Right.
You need to just focus on what you're doing." And they'll if they're unhappy, they'll tell you. They're happy right now. Just keep working at it, and it'll all come through.
Well, I'll tell you this: we're excited to be part of Jam Street Media. We're excited that Amanda found us, and
thank you, Amanda. And Amanda's here. We're gonna have her on as
Amanda
a guest
Rosenberg's going to come back.
When you do, she is the baddest ass I've ever worked with, and honestly, I wouldn't be doing this right now if it wasn't for Amanda. She really she came into my life right when I needed somebody to kind of kickstart and get things going again. So
and there she is.
Well, we're have her.
Well, we're excited to be working with Amanda, Matty. We're excited to be working with you and your company. We have no idea what the hell we're doing. So as we move forward, you'll let us know if we're messing it up or doing it
you're
right.
Fucking everything up. I got
you got a bunch of notes. All right.
Don't worry, man.
But we're
having fun.
Yeah, so. We're drinking. We are pumped about being with you. We look forward to improving our show and hope that everyone that's listening is getting a little something out of this. And look, if you're not in show business, that makes no difference. Everything we have talked about applies to any other business that you're in. If you want to make something happen in your life, it's going to take risk. That's just the way it is. But Dave, thanks for being here again on the ones and twos.
Back, my man.
Tuddy,
Good
you're the man. I can't believe we got through it. The distinguished man. And Matty,
Thousand Tuddy, baby.
That's right.
Yeah, 2000 Tuddy.
That's what's up.
All right, thanks, and we'll see you guys next time on Let's Get Into
Entertainment.
The business of entertainment.
The business. That's what's up.